Welcome to the Ask Brien radio show. You're listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station.com. And I am your host, Traci DeForge, and my illustrious, infamous co-host, Peter, is doing his civic duty today, Jennifer. He's called in for jury duty. How about that? A lawyer doing jury duty. I didn't even know you could do that.
I know, and I'm genuinely kind of surprised that they called him in, but, you know, they saw greatness in him, I'm sure.
Or maybe I should say this. Maybe I should say Peter said he had to call in, but he never actually told me whether or not he had to go in. So we'll just assume that he's not here because of that. But he could be just, you know, being in that pub he's always talking about, just letting us do all the heavy lifting today.
That's true. That's true. Or he just invited himself into the jury duty pool there.
Right, exactly. Just for fun, because that would be fun for him, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we have a great show on tap today. And before we get to introduce our fantastic guest, which is an expert, one of our favorite E's for the Ask Brien Show, we just want to, you know, you and I, we've got this down pat, right? So people want to know, why is Ask Brien spelled with an E? And we like to say, well, because that is first and foremost because of our fabulous engineer, Jen, right?
Oh, yes,
you get all the credit for that. But also, yay! But also because of the educational component of the Ask Brien Show. We are here to serve entrepreneurs who are growing businesses, have ideas to start businesses. Maybe you've been doing it for a while and you want to scale your business. And so if this applies to you, you are in the right place. And we do that through our experts. And we always like to talk about that mathematical formula about, okay, so what defines an expert? And they say, and today it's Traci says, that an expert is defined by a minimum of investing 10,000 hours in your industry or your niche. And that usually equates to about 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year over the course of 5 years. But, you know, we've said many, many times on this show, yeah, right. No entrepreneur starting or scaling a business is putting in 40. They're probably putting in more like twice that. So we're thinking a much shorter curve than the 5-year mark. And I know for a fact that our guest today, which we're just going to jump right in and introduce, has way more than 10,000 hours in his industry niche. So I would love to bring on and introduce to you, without further ado, which is Peter's favorite word because it's all consonants and no vowels or something like that, or whatever. He's not here, so he can't defend himself. So Mark, come on in the studio, and I'm going to do a formal introduction of you, but today's guest is Mark Ritter. Welcome, Mark.
Traci, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so excited for you to be here. So I know for sure about you because we've had the opportunity to be business colleagues for the last couple of years. And I've actually, as an entrepreneur, reached out to you for advice and guidance, which is one of the reasons why I was very excited to have you on the show. You are the CEO of MBFS, but most importantly, an expert in credit unions and business lending, and the first federal credit union's business lending program. I love on your bio, it says one person and a desk. So we definitely want to hear more about your journey around working in the finance space, and just really super excited you're here because I know with all the things that are happening in this tricky economy that we're in right now, small businesses and small business lending is a hot topic. But before we get into that, tell us what got you to this space. Tell us about starting First Federal Credit Union, but even more so, like, what got you into the small business lending industry?
Sure. As I speak to you, I love kind of small town America. And that kind of got me into the small business space. I really, I enjoy working on the big loans sometimes, but really working with entrepreneurs, small business owners, making dreams. I always say I don't lend money as much as make dreams come true and help you fill your dreams out. And that's the piece that I enjoy really. And it was, heck, almost 25 years ago now when I was looking for that next opportunity in life is when I came across credit unions. And at the time, everybody has an impression of a credit union, and most of the time it's pretty good. People like their credit union. It's where they, got their auto loan or have their checking account or something like that. But they never, when they wanted a commercial loan, a small business loan, they went to the local bank. And for good reason, credit unions didn't do those loans. But about 25 years ago, it started to become a thing. And I was, the proverbial right place, right time, and was given an opportunity. A large credit union hired me and really just kind of, I'll say, threw me to the wolves, and we had to make up this entire industry. And I did that for about 10 years of really just focusing on small business lending before I got the opportunity to lead MBFS and went on this journey.
And that, one of the things that really resonated with me when you were sharing the beginning of your story was that you have a heartfelt connection to small towns and small business. And I feel the exact same way. I mean, one of the things that I have loved the most about my personal entrepreneurial journey has been able to help other entrepreneurs as they start and launch and grow businesses and help them with business development strategy and just all of the things that can really boost an entrepreneur's, not only their confidence, but their strategic initiatives and scale their businesses. But none of that's really possible without the right funding at the right time. So one of the questions that I would like to ask of you today is, when does an entrepreneur, is there a time in which, when they're starting out or maybe 1 or 2 years into their business, when they should start thinking about things like lines of credit and building bridge loans for cash flow management and things like that? Because I think it's kind of a scary thing sometimes when you're a new business owner, if you're self-funding everything.
Yeah, and what I always tell people is, when you're getting ready to start out and kind of work on that journey, don't call me.
Which is what I did when I was like, the first person I thought of when I was wanting to scale to the next level. I'm calling Mark.
and as crazy as this sounds, I'm a very debt-averse person. And when you borrow money for when I borrow money for a car loan or if I carry interest on a credit card, that just costs me money. I'm not making anything by getting a car loan. I'm just paying interest. But really, when you have that business loan, you should be looking to keep your debt level as low as you can, particularly when you start out. And the reason that is because you want the flexibility. I always say my job's pretty easy, is we give you a loan, and if you don't pay it back, we come take your stuff. and sometimes, that's why when you're starting that business, the more sweat equity you have into it and the more dedication you have to it without taking on that first loan, you have a much higher chance of being successful. Because when you have that debt payment over your head, it really becomes a burden. Where, when you don't have a debt level, you have the flexibility to grow and pivot and manage your business, as opposed to saying, geez, I got to make a payment this month. Mm-hmm. And during the pandemic, we had a record number of small businesses formed. And what we're seeing is really those businesses now that they got a couple years under their belt and they're growing, that's when you come see me. Mm-hmm. Now, there are times you come see me when you're starting out, just because, if you have large capital expenditures, a lot of times you got to finance those. But, a lot of small business America that started, once you get that footing and you're out of that honeymoon phase, you're really in that growth mode, that's when, I really come to shine. Because if you start getting in debt too early, you tend to get into a lot of high interest debt, which I think can just be a death spiral.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, I think that one of the things that happens with entrepreneurs that they may not even be aware of is they get excited and then they maybe get access to this capital, right? And we're talking about a separate situation. This is not like having an investor, an angel investor, or a VC or something like that, because that's a whole different trajectory. But if you're a small business and you're getting some traction and you're wanting to expand, let's say by adding another program or another line of services or investment in some software or something like that, and you have access to this capital, I think that what you highlighted, which I want to reiterate, is I think it's so important, is that there's a lot of mental space that gets taken up when you're managing a debt load, because you have to make that payment or someone will come and take your stuff. And so if you can operate have an operating budget that includes profit initially, then you're really giving yourself more mental space for creativity and innovation and expansion, because you really underestimate how much mental taxing and mental energy is spent navigating, running those numbers of how you're going to service that debt, right? So I think that's something people don't talk about enough.
Yeah, in those early years where it can be boom or bust, from a lending side, what we see so often is, when you're in that first year or two of the business, sometimes you can make more money by going and working at the local convenience store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Been there, done that. Not actually worked at the convenience store, but been there, done that in startups where I've felt like maybe I should just be working at the makeup counter at the mall.
Yeah. And mentally, sometimes people aren't prepared for that, or financially, where you have to, realize sometimes you're working for free because of your personal financial situation, or you might not have that rope to get you to the end where it's really cash flow positive. So you want to make sure you're in a good position financially to really take on this business and grow. And you can get yourself to that growth phase of the business.
So what are the success rates of businesses in comparison? I think it's, again, we don't want to have doomsday. There's a lot of positive things about scaling your business and about, being able to secure the right kind of financial loans at the right time. But do you contribute underfunding as one of the major reasons for businesses not making it past the first couple of years? And what are the success versus failure rates around that?
Absolutely. People, it is much more dangerous for me to give people too little money than too much money. That's almost one of the worst things me as a credit unions and our organizations can do, is give people too much money, because it really puts you in a spiral where you start maybe not paying vendors, not paying bills, and you're constantly playing catch up. So, and when you hear about small business failure rates, there's all sorts of crazy stats out there about, this percentage, huge percentages fail with it. But really, it's that first 6 months where people decide, this isn't for me. And most of the time, it's not so much, nobody gets into a business usually they have some passion, they have an interest, they really enjoy it, but they don't realize all the complexities of running a small business. They don't realize the hours. Maybe they have children or another job that they're working on. And it's those non-financial decisions that really get in the way of success. Maybe you have another job and you just can't get it done. But most people really know what they're doing when they start up a business. But it's that execution of growth and managing the customer service. Sometimes there's, I'll pick on contractors a little bit. Almost every contractor that we work with, they know how to build something. And if you just let them sit and build, they're pretty good. What they're not doing, many times they're not good at, is running the behind the scenes piece of customer relations and getting supplies and working with employees and managing your cash flow. And that's really the piece that is the stifling piece to a lot of small businesses.
Well, and so what I'm hearing you say is that you might be an expert in a certain area that then is the catalyst or the motivation for you to start a business. But what you also really need to take into consideration as an entrepreneur, not only just having the access to being able to generate revenues and maybe some other ways to be able to manage financially, but also to manage all of the logistics of running a business. And I really appreciate that you brought that up, because I think a lot of times, an entrepreneur gets a creative, a visionary idea and they just run with it, but don't take into consideration that there are a lot of other things other than just the fun part of the business.
How many times have you seen a beautiful bakery pop up and that makes the most gorgeous cakes and desserts, and then a year later you say, whatever happened to that place? They're really good at making cakes, but there's a lot more to running a small business retail location.
I mean, I can't resist the pun. So they're really good at making cakes, but they don't really know how to make the dough.
Exactly.
But, I think that's one of the reasons why I love the experts that come on the Ask Brien Show, because people like you can really help shortcut that learning curve. And when you're looking at getting into a business, I think it's important to be able to really identify the areas that you have strengths in and the areas that you have weaknesses in, and really be able to tap into resources and experts and mentors like yourself to really help offset some of those areas where you may not be strong. One of the things that you mentioned before when you were talking through this process of the entrepreneurial journey is people who might have an idea for a business and they start it as a side business. So what I wanted to ask you, is what are your thoughts on people, in terms of personally financing businesses, in terms of starting things as a side hustle, proofing out concept and things like that before they jump full into full-time business ownership?
I think there is nothing better than to start your business as a side hustle, if at all possible, to get you some time of proof of concept, making some early mistakes. And if you're going to make a mistake, make it early and move on. And get a chance to get some customer base before you grow. There's so many business success stories that started on that route. And maybe you have a full-time job, and it's a much easier transition than deciding to quit your job on Friday and start on Monday when there's zero income coming in.
Right. I mean, I know, like, for me, when I started my first business, which was, actually celebrating 20 years ago, when I worked full-time and managed a cluster of radio stations, and I had tech support, I had janitorial service, I had admins, I had executive assistants, I just had a team of people. And I know for me, when I stepped out and started my own company, it was like all of a sudden I was the tech support and I was the janitor and I was the IT person and I was the salesperson. And I think that can be a big shock for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my journey here at MBFS is I came aboard when we were a company of 3 people.
I'm going to pause you right there. I want to hear the story. It's a perfect place to pause you for our commercial break. And when we come back, I want to hear all about that. Welcome back. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometownstation.com. And right before the break, Mark Ritter was sharing with us his entrepreneurial story because we were talking through the whole idea of going from a corporate environment to running your own business and being used to having a team to do all the things and then discovering you are the team to do all the things. So, Mark, please share with us about your experience with joining MBFS.
Sure. So I worked at a medium-sized financial institution, and we had all the support you need, every department, every facility, things like that. And I was asked to be the CEO of MBFS. And at the time, I became the 5th CEO in 5 years. And the company had 3 people. And to say it was a disaster was an understatement. You know, and I was good at what I did. So I figured I would come in, list up everything that I was doing, and just drop it down and build a nice little company. I couldn't have been more wrong. I spent so much time in issues that had nothing to do with lending. You know, it turns out our clients didn't like us very much. I spent days and weeks trying to figure out and fix the mail because we weren't getting our mail in time to process statements and bills and payments and everything else like that. And that was a monumental step when I just fixed the mail. And I spent so much time on IT work, on HR work, on changing just little things that had nothing to do with the operations, but it made all the difference with our clients and with our employees on having a successful company. And that was my aha moment into, wow, you have to have so many hats. And if you don't know how that hat works, you just go find out and talk or call everybody you know and try to get the help that you need. And it was, you know, today we're a company of close to 60 people. We work with 100 credit unions nationwide. You know, we finance hundreds of millions in small business loans a year. But if you don't have the basics and the kindergarten level concepts of do everything right, treat people nice, make yourself happy, make your clients happy, and focus on those kindergarten level concepts, everything else just falls apart.
And you're so right about that. And I think one of the misperceptions about entrepreneurship, sometimes back to what got us into this part of the conversation, is that you're really good at something. You're a really good baker, like to your point about the cupcakes and the things like that. And so you're like, I want to start a business that of doing something I'm passionate about. I want to make a difference. I'm really good at this. But just not realizing that a lot of what happens is you start with doing something that you love. And then as your business grows and scales, you don't actually get to do the things you love anymore because you are having to do things like manage the payroll and the payroll taxes and the finances and the shipping and the e-commerce this and the IT that. And you have to really have a keen awareness that sometimes it's not as glamorous as it sounds to be able to think that you're going to do what you do and do what you love all the time and nothing else.
Yeah, really, do run your small business because you enjoy it, you're making a difference, and you can grow your business, and it's going to help you personally, but also financially. And if it doesn't do both of those and fulfills your personal needs and your financial needs, it's okay to sometimes just be an employee.
Right, and say, you know what, and be okay to be like, I tried it and it didn't work, or I tried it and I think this is the greatest thing ever, but be okay with either path once you get into it, and maybe it's something that you didn't expect, or maybe it's better than what you expected, but I think having that awareness that it could go either way is so important. And then the other thing that we haven't really talked a lot about is that sometimes what you think you're starting your business as going down one pathway, but then you end up pivoting because the business evolves and goes in a completely different direction. Have you seen a lot of that happen as you've worked with a lot of small business owners?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many niche small businesses that we deal with where I have to ask the owner, how did you get into this? I always enjoy that conversation. And invariably, I started in one path, I saw a need, I could fulfill it, I enjoyed it, and I kind of grew off of this little line of business that I saw, and look where we're at today. And sometimes people sort of trip into the right business, and it's sometimes related, but it's not directly, but it's somewhat related, and they can kind of build off of their skills.
And being able to recognize those, also another, I think, key to success for building a business is recognizing those niches and being able to monetize those niches, because I think a lot of times people think of the big vision and they forget that you can make really good money in small niches.
Yeah, I once financed a company that manufactured flock. And
manufactured what?
Flock, which is the felt that goes on the outside of ribbons. And
oh my
that's
gosh.
all they made.
Wow.
and people sort of work into these businesses. I just drove past this weekend one of my first business loans where it was a machine shop, but the only thing he did was high-end government military pieces of machinery. He didn't start out that way. He developed an expertise, met some people, and discovered a booming business off of it. So sometimes you really have to look and uncover a lot of rocks to fine-tune your business. If you sell the same thing as everybody else, eventually everybody else will sell the same thing as you.
Yeah, I just think it's always so fascinating to know, like again, people making tons of money off the felt of what goes on to ribbons. Like, that is just incredibly fascinating to me. I bet you have so many more stories like that, and we're going to hear some more of them. But right now, let's take a break, and Jennifer, I'm going to toss it to you to tell us about our awesome sponsor, who, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here today being able to talk about felt on ribbons. So, so wrap a nice little bow around our sponsors for today.
I will do that, a Christmas bow, if you will. We want to say thank you to LegalSteps.com. It's LegalStepz.com. And Traci, you and Mark were talking earlier about, Mark had mentioned something about the first 6 months is kind of a make it or break it if you're starting off, trying to figure out your own business. And it kind of got me thinking about what Legal Steps offers in terms of online courses. You can work at your own pace. So you have kids, you have another job you're trying to juggle. You can kind of go at your own pace. You don't have to feel like you have to be at this meeting on a Monday when you just can't possibly make it. Classes are affordable. They're less than $150. So you're not going to break the bank in terms of trying to get ahead. They can help you with trademark, LLC, S Corporation. They've been around for 30 years plus. So they have the experience and knowledge. So you know that you're in good hands. And all All of the courses are reviewed by an attorney, so you're not kind of just out there on your own, guessing. And if you kind of get stuck and you really can't form a business after taking the courses, they're going to do it for you. That's how confident they are. They'll hold your hand through it, and before you know it, you'll be running your own business with the help of Legal Steps, LegalStepz.com.
And, we were talking, Legal Steps is so great to help you shortcut any mistakes that you might make in starting up your business, getting your LLC and all of the things that Legal Steps supports with. They're there to help you keep from making mistakes in the legal arena. Mark, I'd like to ask you, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making when they're trying to secure financing? Because I know that would be just incredible information for our listeners to know about.
Oh, great question. And without a doubt, the one piece that's two pieces that go into, they think everybody that lends money is the same person and it's the same criteria and they're all doing the same thing. And, there are so many banks out there. There's so many credit unions out there. And there's so many of these, if you go online, there's so many different alternatives. But not if you walk into a bank, you have to make sure they sell what you're shopping for. And there are banks and credit unions, as obviously I want everybody to go to their local credit union, that do not work with small businesses. They work with doctors, attorneys, and huge real estate investors. There are credit unions and banks that work with small businesses and lines of credit union and SBA loans. There's some banks that's really all they do is SBA loans. So I love SBA loans, but that might not be what you need, but that's what they're selling. And people get frustrated because somebody tells them no, and their first move is to go to some of these high-priced online lenders for a quick, fast money loan, and it is a death spiral for your business. It's like the payday lending for small businesses, and there's lots of them. So when you're shopping for a loan, ask other businesses like you. Ask your accountants. Ask for your attorneys. Ask your friends. And sometimes when you walk into a bank, they need you as much as you need them. Ask them, are they in this marketplace today? There's a lot of banks out there that have liquidity problems and that nobody tells you they're not lending, but you really have to ask those questions. Are you going to give me the money? Or what is your credit policy today? What are the terms you're offering? Because they might just be selling something to make it so expensive that hope you go away. So you really want to make sure that the culture of who you're talking to aligns with who you want to be and where you want to go. And don't get frustrated and and just walk away from the financing you need or go to some quick, fast money, high interest rate lender.
So speaking of quick, easy, high interest rate lenders, can you walk us through what is the difference between, like, for example, a company like Blue Vine versus a credit union?
Sure, absolutely. The short answer is night and day. It's really, what a credit union is, and that's who my company is owned by credit unions, and we work with over 100 credit unions nationwide. So a credit union is a financial co-op for its members, by its members. And today, a huge portion of the credit unions are out there financing small businesses and small real estate investors. The online lenders like Blue Vine, On Deck, and some of these other people, they're looking to make a large number of loans as fast as they can, knowing that a huge percentage of these people, when you don't know your customers and you're approving everybody that just walks into the door, The only way you can make that model work is to charge outrageously high interest rates. And it's not generally working with a bank behind the scenes. It's working with, investment money that is going to pay, where you're going to pay 36%, and they know 20% of the loans are going to charge off. So you fall into, you got to pay these people back, and it really it impacts your cash flows, as opposed to that credit union philosophy that's a co-op working for you, that's more relationship-based and not just transactional-based.
And I also want to bring back and highlight a point that you made, because, again, I don't think that people talk about this enough, because when you're an entrepreneur and you're in that frenzy, if you will, of I need to get funding, or I need a bridge loan, or I want to grow and I want to bring on a new employee, maybe, for example, that I really want to feel secure before I do that, you're feeling like I need to have. But I love what you said about when you walk into that bank, you go into that bank with confidence and asking the right questions, because they need you as much as you need them. And I don't think that's an entrepreneurial mindset that most people really understand, because people have such emotional reactions around money, and they may even be waiting to a place where they're feeling desperate. And I'm pretty sure anybody can sense that desperation. So I love that you highlighted the aspect of feeling confident about what it is that you're doing, but also asking the right questions, because you might get a no that has nothing to do with you, but shuts you down. So it keeps you from going and asking again to the right source.
Most of the time when somebody can't pay me back, or one of our credit unions back, what happens is they very rarely have financial difficulties. It's usually emotional difficulties on how decisions that they make. And it's because they're worried about their job and not talking to the banker. So they make a rushed, rash decision, which then snowballs into a bad financial decision. But it really started with an emotional your emotional relationship with money.
Yes, so we're going to head into a break, and when we come back, we're going to explore that a little bit more. You are listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometownstation.com. Welcome back to the Ask Brien radio show. You're listening to KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometownstation.com. And one of the things that is so important for me to ask you, Mark, is how can people continue this conversation with you? Because I feel like this show goes by so fast and we cover so much amazing information, but I know there's so much more that people would probably want to tap into. So what are some of the best ways they can connect with you?
Sure. We love to talk with entrepreneurs, small business owners, on helping guide you through this process. So you can go to mbfs.org, mbfs.org. Or you can hit up my personal website, Mark Ritter, MarkRitter.com, and we will connect you with a local credit union.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Now, I just happen to know, because we are connected through my company, Producer Podcast, so I just happen to know that you also have a fantastic podcast. Would you like to share a little bit about that so that people can listen to you on your show?
Absolutely. On every major audio platform, if you search up Credit Union Conversations, you will find me talking about the latest financial industry gossip and talk. And it'd be great to get the inside scoop on who we are and how this world works on Credit Union Conversations. Hopefully people can listen in and pick up some tips on there too.
So you're basically, what you're saying is you're spilling the tea on finance on Credit Union Conversations. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. If you ever want to know what goes on behind the scenes and what people in finance and financial services talk about, that's the show to listen to.
Right. And we didn't get to see enough of it, but I happen to know that Mark has almost a stand-up worthy comedic sense of humor. So you might get a little glimpse of that too. Well, before before we wrap up the show today, I feel like we have really encouraged people to investigate, learn more, find out what kind of relationship they can build with a credit union. What is your best advice for a small business owner who wants to connect with a credit union locally?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, if you haven't talked to a credit union for your small business, it is not your parents' credit union that you may have the impression of. Credit unions last year financed over $50 billion to American small business owners. And the odds are, what people don't realize, if you're driving past a credit union right now, there's probably a 95% chance that you can go in and do business with that credit union. If you don't know of a credit union that you can work with, one of the things that we love to do is connect with small business owners all across the United States, and we find out somebody who's lending to small businesses and working with small businesses in your marketplace, because there's 3 times as many credit unions as banks in this country. So there's a lot of us, and sometimes it might be difficult to weave through that, and we really like to help people get access to credit union services.
Well, and what I love about what you said, and it's just, you don't hear of this anymore with the big banks, is that you can, if you're driving by and you see a credit union, you can pull into the parking lot and go in and actually talk to a human being. And that in itself is a big positive, in my opinion.
I think if I went back to work at a bank, they'd probably fire me within a week, just because I like relationships and talking with people.
Well, and isn't that the saddest reason to be fired for something, right? But I am with you 100%. It's like building relationships, having a conversation with somebody, and really feeling like someone's on your side and being your cheerleader, because all the challenge we talked about today, it's difficult to be an entrepreneur. It's so rewarding, but it's so hard. And to think that you could have your financial partner also be your cheerleader, what a wonderful gift that is.
Absolutely.
Well, Mark, you've been fantastic and really one of our most favorite experts on the Ask Brien Show so far this year. And we really want to have you back, because I know a conversation around small business lending never gets old. And I'd like for you to spill the tea on some of that gossip and trends on financing. So I think we're going to have you back.
The market is always changing, so more than happy to connect with the listeners.
Well, we will see you in 2024. And until then, I hope you have a really happy holiday season. And we are wrapping up, and you have been listening to the Ask Brien radio show. And we appreciate you. Thank you for a great year. And again, KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station.com.